Alien's Guide to Being an Earthling, a podcast with me, Dr. Khushboo Shah, a consciousness-based guide to creating the life and living you know should be possible with, for, and on planet Earth. Well, welcome everybody to episode number 6 of Alien's Guide to Being an Earthling with me, Dr. Khushboo, and today I have a special guest, Monica Gilliam, who is an Access Consciousness Facilitator, who is a Talk to the Entities Facilitator, who is an Access Consciousness Oracle. In my opinion, that's one of the most difficult jobs out there. The way I can explain this is holding multiple spaces together at the same time. So it's like live typing, live transcribing of live access classes, which believe me is not easy. I don't know how she does it. So that would be a podcast that requires like an entire conversation later. And obviously like a plant whisperer, talk to the plants is one of her specialities, and she's brilliant with it. So welcome. Thank you, Monica, for being here. I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
I'm so excited. Thank you. Yeah.
So basically, I would actually like to know you a little bit more. So I know Monica, and then I know of her. She's been around in Access for a while, and if you've ever done Access, you'll also know her. But I'd like to know, so what was your childhood like? Where were you born? How were you? Do you resonate with the word alien there?
Yeah, it's funny. So I was born in the US in Michigan. My mother was Brazilian and my father's American. And I spent a lot of time, they got divorced when I was quite young, like before I was 2. And so I kind of spent a lot of time going back and forth between them. And I went to 9 elementary schools and 1 middle school and 3 high schools. And so I was always bouncing around a bunch, which meant that I was kind of always in a way on the outside. I didn't have all of the long friendships with everybody that everybody else did. And it's funny because it really worked for me. It was like I got to keep on kind of recreating, rediscovering, like, who am I now? And who am I now? And it's funny because I see how in a lot of ways, like there was a lot of kind of turbulence in my family when I was younger. So I was kind of just trying to figure out how to deal with that and go to a new school and, have like my existential crises about like, who am I and what am I doing here and all of that. And plus being aware of everything that was going on for everybody. But having so many different things that I was kind of navigating actually, in a way, I think made it easier for me. It's like when I do the oracling work that I do, if I give myself even more work to do, then it gets easier. Like sometimes I'll be typing in a class, and then if I am having a difficult time with what's going on with the class, then I'll like try to read something that's totally different simultaneously, and that makes it easier for me to like strangely like filter out the noise. so being I guess that's kind of being an alien, but I didn't know that other people weren't doing that.
Yeah.
It was only when I got older that I started to notice that people were different than I was.
So how are you like a kid? Like now I know that this is how you do oracling and this, but like how did this look like when you were a kid?
I mean, honestly, there was a lot of kind of emotional coping that I was trying to do with like what was going on with my family and stuff like that. And so then what I would do is So I was like kind of in the background working on like, okay, is everybody okay? Is anybody going crazy? Is somebody about to die? You know, I was like trying to deal with that. But then what I did was I would like dive into learning. And like my teachers would give me, you know, one little thing. Like they at one school that I was at, they taught the alphabet. And then at another school, so in the morning, I would go to a school where they were teaching the alphabet, but in the afternoon, I would go to another school and those kids weren't learning the alphabet. And I was like, you guys, there's this thing, it's the alphabet, it's amazing. And I would like try and figure all of this stuff out. And then I moved away and the next school was doing something different. And so I was just like, there's an alphabet and I'm going to figure this out. So I was like dealing with all of the family stuff kind of emotionally. And then I would get to like adventure into this world of discovery, whether it was like through reading or even like mathematics. I would, you know, I would go to one school and they were starting to learn one thing. And then the next school wasn't learning that, but I wanted to learn it. So then I would teach myself, you know? So there was always this really rich exploration and discovery that I was a part of that people weren't necessarily mandating for me. It wasn't like the teacher was like, this is how you do it. They would give me something and then I would go, oh, that's amazing. And I would take it and run. And that, it's strange because like that was a huge part of kind of how I was coping with the difficulties, is that I would find this like magic of discovery that was mine, that I could be inspired by other people and then go and play, but I wasn't like regulated by people in the area where I got to explore.
I love it. There's so many things there that I'd like to sort of extrapolate and sort of bring out a few things. One of the common themes with everybody that I have spoken to is having those multiple interests, you know. So, and on one hand, you're like alphabet, on the other hand, you're like magic and let's talk to plants. And on one hand, you're like math and typing, and the other hand, let's talk to entities. Like, so there's this, oh, so for someone like you out there, who is in school or is someone who's a parent and who has kids who have these multiple interests, and looking back at your childhood, what tool or what tip or what information or what advice would you like to sort of give?
You know, it's so funny because it's like even now I am discovering more and more how it is that I work. It's like I kind of joke around. It's like each of us is a musical instrument that nobody's ever played before. And so we don't know how to play this thing. You know, we're the only one. It's like, do I hit it? Do I like pluck at it? Do I, you know, what, how do I play this thing? How do I get this thing that is me to sing? You know? And so I'm, you know, now I'm still trying to kind of explore that. And I think that, you know, for me, having a lot of space to kind of guide myself and not have to try to be like everybody else. That was like such a gift. And I know that like these days I see that parents are kind of like regulating kids' activities more. It's like the rule is that you're supposed to kind of like know what your children are doing all the time, whereas I had a lot of stuff.
We had that too.
So much space to be alone. I mean, it was partially because like my mom, you know, didn't have the money for like childcare, or, you know, there was like stuff, but for me it really worked, you know, to have this space to get to explore how I am. And you know, it's kind of like you could look at it just, it seems almost like circumstantial that like this is what occurred kind of in the background or in the cracks, or it wasn't like designed, you know, let's give Monica lots of uninterrupted time to explore, you know, but it it was such a gift. And really I there was one, so I started dancing also when I was younger. And then I studied dance in school and was a professional dancer for many years. And it's interesting because when I began dancing, the teacher that really inspired me, she was like, "Hey, I'm gonna dance like this because this is who I am. But how you dance will be different because you're different. And
Yeah.
I'll teach you things so you don't hurt yourself, like, you know, bend your knees when you land from a jump, you know,
Yeah.
but how you do it is really the way that you do it, which is very different in many dance forms. They're like, do this exactly the same way that I do it.
Oh, believe me, I went to a dance class that way and I used to cry. I was like, oh my God, why can't I play? Why are you making me go to this? I hated it. Anyway.
Yeah, well, and it seems like in many ways, like this whole world is trying to get us to be like someone else. You know,
Yeah.
there's this person who's like somehow presented as an ideal, and then you're supposed to try and be like that, you know, rather than really being like, wow, you're the first one of you, you're the only one of you, what do you have to say that's something that we've never heard before, you know, and like giving and encouraging that difference is is a tool. It's a tool that I kind of like gave to myself just by being excited about the things that I was
Yeah.
excited about and not having anybody stop me,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
So yeah, don't like exactly. So give them space. Know that each child is different. Don't stop them. Uh, and let them explore how they are with whatever interests and many interests that they have. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. I was mentioning that, you know, like even now I'm like still kind of like, whoa, how do I work? You know, and I discover things that are like it takes a certain kind of level of courage, I would say, to go ahead and just go for it with being who you are, even if there's no
Yeah,
example of it out there in the world. Like for me, talking to plants, you know, or talking to entities, you know, this thing that I didn't have a lot of, you know, like, this
education.
is how you do
Yeah.
it. Yeah, exactly. It was more like there was kind of a suggestion that it was possible, and I knew that there were people that I could go talk to, but I took it and explored it and
Mm,
had that sense of like, okay, if I'm going to do this in the way that works for me, how would I do that, you
yeah.
know?
Mm,
And that has been such a cool journey too, that is just like that sense of like being allowed to be me, not trying to just like fit the pattern or do the things the right way,
yeah.
has given me this sense of being really like empowered, like, oh, I can do it.
Yeah.
I probably won't do it the way that anybody else does, but I
You will
like,
find your way. Yeah. And like having that confidence or the trust in you that I'll find my way. You know, I may not get it right the first time, but I'll find my way. Because if this is
and
interesting
it'll be,
enough, yeah.
yeah, it'll be fun. It'll
Yeah,
be
it'll be
fun.
fun. Exactly. Love it. Wow. So, when did you know you could talk to plants?
Well, it's funny. When I was in my early 20s, I was working for this woman in Washington, in Seattle, and she started talking to me about like the consciousness of the earth
Yeah.
and showed me different books about like nature spirits. And I thought, oh, that sounds awesome. But it also kind of sounds like a fantasy, like a fairy tale, like what I've always wished were true, but I wasn't sure about it, you know? And so then one day she sent me out into the garden and she said, will you cut, you know, all of this ivy that was growing? And I was like, but you just told me that it was conscious, and will it hurt it? I don't know. Like, is that what? It was like threw me into this kind of crisis of like, oh no,
Yeah.
what if I do it wrong? So I just went outside and I was like, all right, if there's consciousness here, like I'll just reach out and be like, hi, everything that could possibly show me what to cut or what not to cut, please do. And then I just started cutting away, and every once in a while my hands would just stop. And then I would
Yeah.
like investigate and see that like I was about to cut through something that I shouldn't cut through.
Right.
And that in that moment, I was like, oh, it worked. Like I asked
Yeah.
for some assistance and I got it. And that was so exciting that I just started going to the garden, being like, how are you doing? What's going on? You know, just asking a bunch of questions. And it was so surprising because I just kept, the more questions I would ask, the more awareness that I had of things that nobody had ever told me or I hadn't read or anything like that. And then I would do some more research and discover that it was accurate, you know?
Yeah.
That was like, wow. And then I just kept on going and going and asking plants all over the world, all sorts of things, and then noticing that they would respond, you know? They would respond more immediately and easily than most people that I would
Yeah.
talk to. But I just had to be willing to not require them to speak English, you know? So
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I love it because it's so funny. Just 2 days back, so we have these gardeners that come in, and once a month they just change the soil, they cut whatever is overgrown, and I remember them cutting something, and I got like really angry, like, dude, why did you do that? And then there's all of this conflict in my world. Like, am I just being like this earth protector? Or like, and they're like, no, but the plants have to be cut, then they'll grow. But there was something off. And then I was expecting them to know, or why don't you talk to plants? But I have to do your work. This is the stuff that's going on in my head. But now talking to you, I'm like, wait, I should go out and do this because I do have space to actually go and build my skills and learn something new.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun. It's
Yeah,
so
and it's
fun.
fun. Yeah. Which is the
Yeah.
difference, right? Because for them, it was so much like work. I have to do this, I have to get my work done, blah, blah, blah. They're already bored of it. And then there's this whole other way of approaching things, which is how can this be fun? Like, what if this is fun? And how can this be fun? And is this fun for me? And then am I interested, or am I doing this like another job? Yeah, I love it. It's just like things opened up as you.
And also like the thing is that with what I've found with many gardeners is they have all sorts of really entrenched points of view about like this is what you have to do this, and some of that came from some brilliant awareness, but then it got
Then it
stuck.
got muddled. Yeah, yeah.
And then people will just do that without even asking. And it's amazing. There are different plants that I engage with that are like, this one orchid is totally different than that orchid that's right next to it, that is like the same species, but they react to water differently, they react to sun differently, they have like their own voice. And just like I was saying before, with like being so glad that I wasn't, I mean, to a certain extent I was, but
Yeah.
in some ways I wasn't forced to try to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
That allowed so much joy in my world. And then with the plants, like when you go out into the garden, there are all of like the rules of the things you're supposed to do. But that is from somebody else's idea who's not there. You could just be like, hey, plant, what would you like?
Yeah.
You know? And then
Just
you
like your children, what would you like?
and then you start to get to like just discover, you know, sometimes you do something and it really works, and sometimes you don't, and or it doesn't work out, and you learn from both of those,
Yeah.
you know.
And no two plants the same, just like no two children, no people. I love it. Okay, so I mean, I had to talk to you about plants. Like I can't not talk to you about plants. Um, so going back, so what is it? Like, what led you to looking for something like access consciousness?
Well, I mean, part of it was that I was always receiving information that it seemed like nobody else was receiving. Like I would, you know, I would sit next to somebody and all of a sudden my back would start hurting. And at a certain point, I realized, like, wait a minute, I didn't do anything different. And then I just would start asking, like, hey, is your back hurting? And, you know, more and more I discovered, like, oh, my body would feel what was going on with other bodies, or I would be aware of something that I had no explanation for why I was aware of it. But I knew that I was, or like talking to the plants or whatever it was. And so there was a certain point. So I also went to school for Chinese medicine. And
Yeah.
an acupuncturist, and I had an acupuncture clinic in New Orleans, and it was just like I was really curious about, like, what's the difference between the people who get better and the people who don't. And like I have all of this training and I'm doing my best with everybody. It's not like I'm holding back with one person, you know? So it's like, why is it when I go, here's everything to one person, they'll be like, my whole life has changed, and somebody else will be like, no, you know, what is that? And so I was both curious about kind of what that was, and also I wanted to get more information about how to work with my awareness. It was really like I had the sense like I need more schooling, because I know that like me being able to feel what's going on in somebody else's body, like I knew that I wasn't the only one in the world having that, but I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, who can I talk to? What can I do to use this more, to have more clarity on how to play this instrument that is me, and actually be more effective. Like, because if I would like to work with my patients, you know, I would love to see the change that they say that they're there for. Like, so how do I do that, you know? And so I remember one day I sat down in my clinic and I was like, okay, now more, it's time. I like, show me where to go. What is it? You know?
Yeah.
And then I got this random email, like an email that I usually wouldn't even open up. And there was a video in there that included Dr. Dane here, and he said the clearing statement. And I was like, what is that? And so I just looked up on YouTube the clearing statement, and I was like, this is really interesting. And so then I just started using the clearing statement, and I would just like go on walks and be like, okay, I'm going to ask questions about whatever. I'd give myself a topic. Today is money. Okay, so what do I feel about money? Okay, is. And then I'd say the clearing statement, and then I'd be like, did it change? Did something? And then I would just ask more, and I just started to notice that like things that had seemed really stuck started to just feel not so stuck. And then with some of my patients, I'd be like, come here, watch this weird video. I mean, it's free. Who knows? Like maybe you could just say this weird clearing statement thing. If it works, like why not use it? And then I just got so inspired by like this clear way of engaging with the energy that I had always been so aware of, but nobody else seemed to be acknowledging, or, and I didn't necessarily know what to do with it. But then with Access, I found this like clear way of acknowledging, like, yes, you are aware. How about you try this and this and this and this? And then that again kind of inspired me to be like, oh, I get to explore. There's not somebody who's like, this is the way that you need to do these tools, this is the way. It's more like, go for it, go be alive and play, and then be like empowered.
Yeah, love it. So quick information for all of those who are listening to this and who've never done Access Consciousness before. So the clearing statement is something like this: right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pork, all 100 shots, boys, poets, creations, bases, and beyonds. Now, obviously, this doesn't make any sense to you right now, but believe me, it's one of the most magical tools out there. Anything that you wanted to change can change within like seconds. All right. So we will put a link to the website where you can go and check out a video, the explanation, and you can start using it almost immediately. And any place that you feel stuck, start using it and see if it works for you. Yeah. So that's the magic wand from Access, the clearing statement. I love it. All right. So again, there's so much that you've said. So now I'm like trying to remember certain things. Like, wait, I have to ask about this also. I'm going back to the first thing that you spoke about. Like as a kid, there were things going on in your family. And so this way of exploring different things was somewhat a coping mechanism. But today you also realize that it's actually a gift. So what's the difference there? So how do you know when it's like, can you articulate it at all? What's the difference? Yeah.
It's funny because there was a class that I was a part of with Gary Douglas and Dane, the co-founders of Access. And it was a class on abuse, and we were looking at, people's childhoods and stuff like that. And I realized that I had developed this hypervigilance where I was so aware of like what was going on with everybody, because, when I was younger, it was like, okay, is there going to be a problem here? Is this person going to kill themselves? Are they going to kill me? So I was like, so hyper alert and aware of everybody that it was starting to show up in ways that were quite uncomfortable and didn't need to be that hard. Where like I couldn't sit next to somebody because all I could do was like hear what was going on in their head, and I would be like, could you please shut up? And they weren't saying anything, and so actually that's an amazing talent, but then when it's just like being used indiscriminately, it becomes like a curse. It seems like a curse. And so when Gary first was like, oh, how much hypervigilance did you develop? It was like, yes, a lot. And so immediately I thought, okay, well, I'll just cut that out. And he was like, no, it's not about cutting it out. It's about, when do you use this? And you get to ask and you get to develop more, where it's kind of like, you don't have to fixate on the person next to you. You can kind of just like tap in and be like, okay, is there anything that I need to be aware of over here? Like, oh, the person has a gun. Right. Or like the person just like overate. That's not that important. I can be like, okay, and then choose to let that go. So it's like the ways that we develop these coping mechanisms, and some of them are developed through our amazing capacities. But then when we kind of use them on autopilot, rather than being able to like finesse them, use them with skill, then it can start to like work against us. And one thing that I've noticed with that is that like the kind of stepping stone to becoming masterful with your capacities is to acknowledge them as capacities. So the thing that seems like it's super wrong about you, if you just kind of go, okay, so like, what's the gift in this? Like, what capacity is this? And then, you kind of do whatever work you need to do, say the clearing statement to like let go of that point of view that it's so wrong, then you can kind of begin to see it through different eyes and have a sense of like, oh, wow, there's an amazing skill in here. There's an amazing ability. Okay, so how can I use that? Where can I use that? What else is possible with that? And then you begin to use it differently. Because like for me, sitting next to somebody and being so aware of what was going on in their heads, that did not seem like an amazing ability from
for
the
sure.
perspective of like being like, well, I can't get out in public, like it seemed like a handicap, and then slowly just being like, wait, actually there's a gift in there. Okay, how can I use it? When do I use it? When do I let it go? When do I stop fixating on everybody else's heads? And that has turned it into like, now all of a sudden that thing gives me even more ease moving through the world.
Love it. So that's been one of my greatest sort of gifts from Access as well. Just that one sentence, what if everything that you were made wrong for is actually where you're strong? So look at, or everywhere you made yourself wrong for is actually where you're strong. So just look at all of the places where, if people called you sensitive or people called you like aggressive or whatever people called you, just look at that. Or you called yourself, you labeled yourself, and look at that and really start asking, what's the capacity here? Like, what is the capacity? And everything that does not allow you to look at it as a capacity, use the clearing statement and get rid of all of that junk that you've put around the capacity, and then you can start exploring you as a different musical instrument that you are with your capacity. Oh, love it. Thank you so much for this. Yay. I'm kind of like, my head's gone like.
Can I just say one kind of last thing with that? It's like, in a certain way, I get that we've kind of been taught that like, if you do the right steps, things will turn out the right way. Whether we've ever experienced that or not, that's something that we've kind of been led to believe.
A lot,
Exactly. And so what we're presenting here is this thing of like, it's an adventure, it's an exploration, and it's not going to be necessarily like, I sat down and I changed my ideas about my wrongness and I decided they were strongness. And now, it's like, it takes kind of being with it. But if you can shift your perspective from like, I got it right or I got it wrong, to like, I'm on an adventure. I'm on an adventure and I get to explore things with the whole universe. Like I just learned from a plant, or like I just whatever it is,
And this is like the best kind of education you can give yourself. So what if no one ever told you how to do anything, and you were raised by a tree, and you had that backing, like, I'm there to contribute, but go explore. How would you be today? What different skills with different capacities, what would you be exploring that you stopped exploring or didn't explore because you had to do it the right way, finish your school, do your university, get that job? What if there was a different way of being? And these conversations are basically with people who I can see are being there out in the world and are thriving. And one of the greatest gifts when I see these people has been the tools of access consciousness. So that would probably be the common thread amongst other things. It's not asking you what to do, but it'll definitely empower you with some tools so that you can go out and explore you. So thank you so much, Monica. This has been a great conversation. There's been so many things. I'm actually going to listen to it. I know I'm going to invite you back later for like a deeper conversation on something else. But thank you so much. And everyone out there listening to this, I hope this contributed, and stay tuned for the next one. And you can also join my membership, which is of the same name. And go check out Monica Gilliam. We'll put her website, her Instagram channel. She also does a lot of classes, including Talk to the Plants, like we spoke about. And what else is possible? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. To know more, check out my website www.the-earthlings.com. To know more about Access Consciousness, go to www.accessconsciousness.com. If this contributed to you, do share and invite more listeners, and don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next episode.